Hey, what's up guys? Hope everyone's doing fantastic. I have another top 10 list for you today, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite action movie heroes from the best decade in the genre, the 1980s.
Chill out.
So without any further delay, let's get right into it. Coming in at number 10, Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell in Escape from New York. Okay, so we can all agree Escape from LA was not a very good movie at all, but I thought Russell was still pretty awesome in the role. But back in the 80s, he was at his best as the eye patch wearing anti-hero in Escape from New York. He was tasked with rescuing the president after he's stranded on a wasteland of Manhattan, and throughout all that, Plissken's charm never wavers. I thought Russell as Snake Plissken was charming. He was confident to the point of arrogant. He had just that right amount of narcissism to him, and it all resulted in all you could ask for from a prototypical hero. Plus, he was the first one to wear the Under Armour. He made the feathered hair work perfectly, and his quick wit just made him a memorable character to me. While the film may have came out way early in the decade, the lore of the character has really just resulted in a string of comic books that just provide endless amounts of adventures for the old one-eyed rebel. Coming in at number 9, Dutch, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. To me, 1987's Predator is still one of the all-time great sci-fi action flicks, and when you are dropping a small group of rugged commandos into the jungle to battle something you've never seen before, who better to lead than Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dutch? I thought Arnold shined in the role as a cigar-smoking, assault rifle-wielding hero, and he delivered a few memorable one-liners along the way as well.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Get to the chopper!
You one ugly motherfucker.
Arnold gave the character of Dutch a textbook kick-ass mentality and really created a persona fitting for a team leader that, despite his fears, would not back down as they just clashed with this alien hunter, and it all resulted in a classic game of cat and mouse in the dark jungles and a primal level that just, in my mind, still go down as one of the all-time best third acts. Coming in at number 8, Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver in the Alien franchise. Sigourney Weaver shined in the role of Ellen Ripley in the Alien franchise, and after she successfully just established the character as a strong leader that wouldn't back down in the original film, she would continue on building the character into a full-fledged action hero in the 1986 sequel. I thought Aliens was an impressive sci-fi action flick. It's one of the all-time great sequels. Weaver as Ripley was equally as impressive. Behind all her firepower, she really embodied the hero role, and she went toe-to-toe with the deadly alien, showing her fear, but at the same time her bravery, that in my opinion would just go on to solidify her as one of the all-time great characters, and plus she did it in style with those awesome alien stompers. Coming in at number 7, Robocop, played by Peter Weller in Robocop. Easily one of the most iconic characters of the 80s, Robocop was a massive financial success that spawned a film franchise, a reboot, endless amounts of toys, comics, a TV show, and even a cartoon series. But the first Robocop film was one of the darkest, purely most violent movies I can remember seeing at that age. I certainly shouldn't have been watching it, but despite the violence and the fact that at times it was a horror movie to me as a kid, I thought Robocop was a classic film hero. With such a dark tone to the first two films, the heroics of Robocop saving a dystopian Detroit on the verge of ruins was just excellent. Crime was taking over and Robocop just wasn't having it. He was quick with his pistol, mercilessly took down waves of disgusting criminals, and still had time to deliver some classic lines like,
Your move, creep.
and I mean, how can we forget?
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Coming in at number 6, Marion Cobra Cobretti, played by Sylvester Stallone in Cobra. Now this character may not be one of the most well-known on the list, but any fan of action movies in the 80s would have to appreciate Sylvester Stallone as the toughest balls detective from the Zombie Squad. Sure, the character was as stereotypical as one could be, with the tight jeans, the boots, the aviator glasses, and a guy who chewed on a matchstick, but Stallone just thrived in the role and just made it a memorable one. He takes down an army of psychos all by himself in a movie that was just filmed with endless amounts of gunplay, and Stallone never looked less than 100%. The character was brash, he was cocky, he was arrogant, he was skilled and relentless in his job, and Marion Cobretti just made Cobra one of the all-time great 80s action flicks. Plus, he was never short of a few memorable lines, as well as he fought off a axe-wielding cult led by the serial killer known as the Night Stalker.
I'll blow this whole place up!
Go ahead. I don't shot her. You're a disease, and I'm the cure. This is where the law stops, and I start.
I mean, need I say more? Coming in at number 5, Axel Foley, played by Eddie Murphy in the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. Certainly he's not the most intimidating character on the list, but Eddie Murphy as Detective Axel Foley is iconic to me. He was hilarious, wildly unpredictable, and Murphy just captured all of that with ease. He was able to perfectly blend comedy and action, and it made the character just one of the more memorable ones from the decade. Like none of the other characters on the list, Axel Foley was just a normal guy. He wasn't loaded with muscles and didn't give off the empowering presence of your traditional protagonist, but that was what made him so great. He was smart, and no matter what the trouble was ahead, his personality always shined through. He never backed down from a gunfight. He was skilled in his work, and all the while he gave off the impression of just kind of dicking off. He was really solving the case. Coming in at number 4, Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford in the Indiana Jones franchise. He may be the oldest on the list, but the character of Indiana Jones is still one of the all-time greats. I thought Harrison Ford was just excellent in the role and really delivered all we could ask for in an iconic character. His adventures were just wildly enjoyable, and with his charisma and normal guy personality, he was just amusing when needed, and despite the outrageous perils he faced, he really never lost his charm. Indiana Jones will always be remembered for his satchel, his hat, and his bullwhip, but to me, he will also be remembered for his never-give-up personality. I think unlike many heroes, things didn't always look easy for Indiana Jones. The dangers he faced at times almost felt like something no one could get out of, but he always managed to do so, and with Harrison Ford's performances, it just makes him one of the all-time greats. Coming in at number 3, John Mcclane, played by Bruce Willis in the Die Hard franchise. The king of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, John Mcclane is just one of my all-time favorite characters, and watching him take down Hans Gruber and his henchmen without shoes will never get old. Mcclane to me is one of the all-time charismatic characters on the list. He exuded the stereotypical action heroes, and his delivery of one-liners will just go down in action movie history.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
Bruce Willis as John Mcclane was smooth, charming, and he never backed down from anyone. I mean, whether he was jumping off a building with a fire hose tied around his waist or ejecting himself from an exploding plane, Mcclane found himself in many life or death scenarios that never just failed to entertain. Regardless of his joyful gunplay and his rugged determination, to me it was his personality that made him one of the memorable characters. Despite the dangers he faced, and no matter how many men it was outnumbering him, Mcclane always lightened the mood with his charm. Coming in at number 2, John Rambo, played by Sylvester Stallone in the Rambo franchise. A more well-known character in his second edition on the list, Sylvester Stallone comes in with a great character as the war-torn veteran John Rambo. From his performance in The First Blood throughout Rambo 3, Stallone was always this very capable but reluctant hero.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
Rambo was the deepest of the characters on the list. He was mentally scarred from his time in the war, and no matter how much he tried to just seek solitude, violence always seemed to find him.
Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe.
And unlike most on the list, Rambo was a true human one-man army with his trademark knife and bow. The explosions were always plentiful, as were the gunfights. I mean, Rambo could take punishment like no other, and really, when all seemed doomed for him, he would always find a way to come out alive and successful in whatever mission was forced upon him. Stallone shined in the role, and with his performances as the character, he created a hero that could stand shoulder to shoulder with his other famous role, that of boxer Rocky Balboa. Coming in at number 1, my all-time favorite 80s action movie hero, Martin Riggs, played by Mel Gibson from the Lethal Weapon franchise. Now, it was really tough to narrow it down to a solid number 1, but in the end I just thought it had to be that of Detective Martin Riggs. He was a normal guy, as close to an overblown film hero as John Mcclane was. The Lethal Weapon films were classic movies, and a large part of that was due to Gibson's performance in the role. The chemistry between he and Glover just carried the films along, but they were not complete without Riggs just completely raging out. He was far from perfect, he had tons of flaws, and was a definite wild card, but when the odds were against him, Riggs never backed down or showed intimidation. He was far from perfect, he had tons of flaws, and he was a definite wild card, but when the odds were against him, Riggs never backed down or showed any intimidation at all. I mean, he could make light out of any situation, he always had a joke to tell, but he really did so without any true catchphrases, which make him just a common, grounded character that people could really relate to.
Oh, you want to see crazy? I'll tell you. Now that's a real badge, I'm a real cop, and this is a real fucking gun.
And that's my list, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it. What are some of your favorite characters from the 80s? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Make sure to drop this list a like if you enjoyed it and would like to see more. Don't forget to subscribe so you always catch my new reviews and my new lists. Thanks for watching. As always, guys, I'm Anthony. This is a Silver Screen Analysis, and I'll see you at the movies.